So I got some shots that I did with the Betacam SX. I took it up to the park. I'm just going to let this play in its entirety, no editing. And you'll see exactly what came off the tape in the best quality that I can present it to you. Okay, I'm out here at the park with the Betacam. We'll just zoom in and focus. It's always a nice thing about these manual lenses is that you can zoom in. Oh, look, there's a bee. Let's get a real good close-up of him. Where did he go? There he is, and he flew away. That's with the extender on. You can see the shallow depth of field. Another bee. I don't have a tripod because I don't have an adapter. Oh, there's all kinds of them on here. I don't have the tripod adapter to put my sticks on this one. So you can see when you're using an extender, you have a very shallow depth of field. Turn the extender back off. Pan the camera around. I don't know how long this battery is going to run because it's not a new battery. It's a very old battery that I'm using. Now, one thing I did notice is that my newer televisions actually support power. My audio meter is showing up in the viewfinder, but my newer television does support PAL, so I was able to see the picture in color on playback. My older plasma sets don't. So that's a house at the opposite end of the park, across the street from the park. It's a long ways away. Got the extender on, obviously. Turn the extender off and zoom back. You can see how far that house is away. It's a long ways out. When you're using an extender, you pretty much have to use a tripod because it's almost impossible to hold still at that distance. But you can get some very dramatic shallow depth of field shots with an extender. Lots of kids playing around here today in the parks. I'm away from where everybody is, just to not take any inadvertent pictures of kids, because you know that doesn't go over very well on YouTube. So I'm kind of isolated out here. I'll just take a quick little stroll. One thing you notice about a camera like this is the sheer weight of it. This is not light. Now I've got a battery belt or a battery pack on my other shoulder. This is what I'm using for a battery. Okay, I just got a gel cell. You know, those little fanny packs, and I just throw it over my shoulder. I use this with my other rig as well, because it lasts a lot longer than using the NiCad packs. It also kind of balances you when you've got a weight on the other shoulder that's almost as heavy as the camera. It tends to level things off a bit. One of the things about having a camera of this size is, well, everybody notices you, that's for sure. You can't sneak this in on anyone. See it from across the other side of the park. I'd be surprised if someone comes up to me and asks me who I'm shooting a story for. Because that's happened. That happened actually at this park. I think it was maybe 2003. I had the JVC up here. It was one of the last things I used it on. It was July 1st. I'm going to say 2003. And my kids were up here and they were doing face painting right there under that covered area. So I was up here using my big camera because that's what I had. I had a big camera. And a guy comes up to me and he says, "Who are you shooting for?" I said, "Well, I'm not. This is my own, and my kids are here." "Oh." He said, "I just assumed because I saw, you know, a giant camera." I laughed and we started dropping names. He told me he was an engineer retired engineer from what's now City TV. It was CKVU at the time. So I started dropping names of some of the guys that I work with, you know, that I had worked with when I was working at the cable station. And he says, oh, you know, did you hear he passed away? And it's like, what? Yeah, he passed away. He had a brain tumor. I said, really? Seriously? You know, and he points at the viewfinder on the camera, and he says, so those bloody cameras, those bloody CRTs, those high resolution CRTs that are on the broadcast cameras. He says they run the high voltage so high on them to get a very crisp picture that you're frying your brains with X-ray. It's like, holy crap. So then I dropped another name of another guy that I knew from when I was in the cable station, and he tells me he passed away. And I said, what? Brain tumor. Pardon? He was a cameraman, studio cameraman. So yeah, in his case it was right between his eyes and his forehead, right about the spot where you'd be bombarded from a studio camera, black and white viewfinder monitor. The first guy was an ENG camera operator, and he ended up with a brain tumor behind his right eye. Gee, that's his shooting eye. So that made me kind of think. And he's telling me, you know, he says, everybody's scared in the business because, he says, we're seeing all kinds of tumors and cancers and stuff from cameramen. He says they're all panicking because they're concerned about the X-rays from these black and white viewfinders. Now, it looks at me like, you know, you should be concerned. Not really was that concerned because my use of them was not as, like I wasn't standing behind a camera for 8 or 10 hours a day like some of the guys that I worked with that stayed in the business. I myself, if I was shooting a wedding, I might be behind the lens for 2 or 3 hours of actual lens time at a wedding. When I was shooting other stuff, I might be looking through the viewfinder. If I was shooting like a real estate video or a music video or something, yeah, I'm looking through the lens for a few minutes here, and then the rest of the time we're either using a studio monitor or the camera's on a tripod and it's locked off and that type of stuff. So I wasn't a real high-end, long-term user like some of the guys in the biz, but it makes you think. Down here there's a lake. Maybe we'll take a stroll down there and see the ducks. There's no denying that this thing is big. And it's not even as big as it could be because I don't have the Anton Bauer battery pack on the back. And I don't have the rig on the front for like lens, the bellows for the lenses, right? I've got the mounts for this to put a lens hood on it. Guess I gotta change my ND filter here. So that's the thing when you're dealing with the broadcast cameras, you have to change your filter. Like this one here is like a 4.3K filter. This is an ND filter, ND1. This is just a color filter with no neutral density, and then this is the darker filter, filter 4 as it's called. But we'll try filter 2, or even filter 3, which is just the color correction. Telling me the lens settings. Right now it's gone to f1.7. We're now at f2.8, 1.7, f4. Right, so I got the viewfinder here. Now I don't even know if I've got gain on this camera. I don't think there's any gain on here. Shouldn't be any gain. Let's just see here. Gain 9 dB, gain 18 dB, gain 0. There's another switch up here for when it's really dark. Turbo gain. Of course, you wouldn't need this out here, but in the dark, you'd use the turbo gain, which is probably like 30 dB gain. I do have that caution indicator in the display. I don't know what it means, but it appears to be working. It's recording. Take another walk over to more of the water here. Gotta watch my step. These ducks are not toilet trained. Ha 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 ha. Now this is where a camera like this really will shine, and if this was an HD camera, it would just look beautiful. When you've got a good lens like this, when you get dynamics, like we're shooting into now, this is where they run circles around consumer cameras. It would look so much nicer if I was using a tripod. Oh, there's a crane. Herring crane. Right there. Kind of blending in with the background. Especially in black and white. I was kind of hoping that the other camera would have worked, the JVC, so that I could brought it out here and done some shooting for both cameras, but unfortunately the transport's not working on it, which is par for the course for that piece of junk, because I told the story before, I think, on the JVC. I used to use it in my production business. I had a Betacam SP in the analog days. Oh, waterfall up there, let's get a shot of that. I had a Betacam SP in the where are we here? There we go. In the analog days, we had a Betacam SP, but the problem with that is that the recording time was just too short for long-form work like weddings and so forth. So I was also using a high 8 professional. And then when everything went digital, everybody was going digital. Digital's the buzzword. You tell a client that you're shooting on analog gear, and they're looking at the competition who's shooting with mini DV, because digital's better, right? So I invested in digital equipment, sold off the analog gear, and bought the JVC. Now, from the get-go, the JVC had problems. Within the first 6 months, I had that error that I got, and back it went, because it's under warranty. They had the camera for, well, they gave me a loaner to use because I screamed bloody murder. I said, I need a loaner. Bought it from a place that also rents cameras. So they gave me a loaner to use while they had it, because it was in the shop for about 3 weeks. And I had a wedding to shoot while it was in the shop. So they gave me a loaner to use. Same camera. Got it back. I guess the next year I started noticing that there were some dead pixels. It would stay on all the time, especially if it was a dark scene. You'd see a bright green pixel. It's right in the middle of someone's forehead if you're framed up for like interview. And back it went, but this time they wouldn't do anything because they said it wasn't in what they called the prime area, which is just around the center of the image. If it's within, I think it's 10% of the border or so, then they don't, or 20% of the border, they don't consider that a defect. So I had to live with that, which kind of ticked me off. But I live with it, you know. I could see it, most people didn't notice it, but it bugged me. The next year, the camera's out of warranty now. I got the same error again. I went back there to send it back again, trying to get it covered under warranty, because I figured it should be covered. And they said, nope, it's not going to be covered under warranty. And nope, we're not going to give you a loaner to use. And I had stuff to do, I had stuff to shoot, so I went out and dropped another, I think it was $5,500 on the HD camera, and just ran it in standard def mode, because my second camera was still shooting in a mini DV. I was using a VX1000 for my second camera. So that was that. That camera became retired, and I started shooting everything on the HDR FX I, which still works. And the JVC just basically became redundant. It would work when it wanted to work. Now it doesn't appear to work at all, because every time I try to play a tape on it, it plays for a few seconds and it comes up with that error. And the only way to resolve it is to remove the tape and put it back in. You see, I used to be able to remove the tape and put the tape back in, it would be fine. It would just do it intermittently. You'd be recording and all of a sudden it would come up with the error, and you'd shut it off, remove the tape, put it back in, and then you could be fine, and it might be fine for the rest of the tape. It was just an intermittent fault. But when you're using it for a production, like a wedding, which can't be rehearsed and can't be repeated, you can't have it go down at all. Like, it can't shut down. It shuts down once, it's dead. The camera is done. And that's what happened on that. Junk, very cheap. What I should have done is I should have spent the money and got one of these SX Betacams, but the price difference was just so much. These were so much more expensive that I just couldn't justify laying out that much capital. I was looking at my timeline for paying it off, so I couldn't justify the capital for one of these at the time. But that's what I should have got. I should have got another one. Should have got an SX or even a full. But again, transition to HD, so it is what it is. Anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough with this. I think we can close this one off, and now you guys have seen how this camera performs or how it doesn't perform, because obviously I won't know until I get home. So let's start the stroll back across the park. We'll take the tape, play it back, and throw it on the computer and see how it looks. So signing off from Diefenbaker Park. Thanks for watching.